we had to have a device to do it. And after literally decades of studies, in 26 years ago now, an authority was set up, the Waterfront Development Corporation, and it was a partnership between the state of Kentucky to try to do something about this first impression you got, the city of Louisville and Jefferson County. And fortunately, there was a bright young fellow named David Karam, who was asked to take charge of this, this project. David is, if you know David, he is a master politician, served in the Kentucky legislature longer than any other person. And maybe more importantly, as an undergraduate, his background was in design. And he has combined that with his political skills and his fundraising skills and his really unusual charm to pull together this community and form a small group of people, virtually all of whom are still working 25 years later. And they put together a truly ambitious plan for the Louisville waterfront and hired a very small, struggling landscape architecture firm from San Francisco named Hargraves and Associates, and asked them to take over this truly innovative design in urban river parks. And today, Hargraves is the best known landscape architecture firm in America or the world. This is what they had to work with. This was a Klemper Brothers scrapyard. If you remember the early James Bond movie Goldfinger, there's a really famous scene where Oddjob drives a brand new Lincoln Continental and they pick it up and put it in a crushing. That was filmed right there. Today, that land is the Great Lawn. It is, in fact, the harbor area of the Great Lawn. The Great Lawn really fills a need in this community that we have had since day one. We've never had a town commons. Through a number of circumstances, there never was a central meeting place for this community, and this has become that. This is the most beloved part of this community, and it belongs to all of us. It is a place where the East End and the West End meet. It's where the South End, it actually gives people from the South End a reason to come into town. You will see things happen here that are absolutely wonderful, and they could be any international city in the world, and it's a very, very special place. Many of the elements in the park are really have history in mind. The original Falls of the Ohio, which were actually a series of rapids, not a dramatic, beautiful waterfall, is remembered today in the system at the water feature, where you have a series that look very, very much like the falls. You have Beargrass Creek is remembered where the water feature comes in, where it used to flow in, a block and a half away, we have this remarkable water feature, which one of the chief challenges is to keep people from swimming in this non-swimming pool. And David Karam, stringent fellow that he is, posted warning signs that say, caution, high levels of hydrogen in the water. It takes a little while to get that. You have to remember your high school chemistry class. The innovative features of the park, one of the things I like most about Waterfront Park is that it can draw, you can put 150,000 people, and just around the corner there's a natural little, not unnatural, but a created landmass, and there'll be a couple over there smooching or somebody reading a book. Or it is the park you make it to be. One of the last major goals of the park happened in 2009 in the observation of Mr. Lincoln's 200th birthday. It was a national celebration, and there were speeches and parades and parties. Almost nothing remains, but the state legislature decided we needed to do something a little extra, considering we're Kentucky. And we were able to hire Ed Hamilton, a terrific, terrific artist, to create a new version of Lincoln that would commemorate his nature as a Kentuckian. And it's a 12-foot high Lincoln sitting down, and it's Lincoln in 1841, where he experienced for the first time really powerfully seeing slaves driven through the streets in chains in Louisville. And it had an enormous impact on him, and he wrote about it to his friends, the Speed family. And so this is the Lincoln they chose to interpret, and it's an absolutely gorgeous part of the park and very important. Well, there's From day one, there have been plans for Waterfront Park to include this odd piece of industrial refuge, the old Big Four Bridge, the bridge that goes nowhere. And in this photograph above Towhead Island, you see it truncated. The bridge was used until the late 1960s, and then it was decommissioned as a bridge. And so they just cut the approaches off. And so you have this lovely piece of rusting metal. But the original Big Four Bridge was built by the Big Four Railroad that I can never remember. Cincinnati, Cleveland, Chicago, and St. Louis, or some combination of those four cities. It was a railroad bridge. It was cursed when they built it. Over 45 men died building this bridge. But it was quite different than the bridge. It's exactly in the location we have today. But it was originally much, much wider. It was wide enough to have a normal rail track, an interurban rail track, the old daisy train, and then two 6-foot walking paths on both sides. Non-vehicular, but it was very, very wide. It was too frail to handle the big, heavy diesel engines that were being developed in the 1920s. And so in 1928, the city of Louisville built two bridges the same year. And they did it a very clever way. What they did with this bridge, they kept the original piers, they tore out the interior, and they built this bridge on the inside of it. When it was finished, they pulled away, they tore off the outside of the first bridge. So they accomplished it very, very quickly and very cheaply. And this is the bridge that we are going to be experiencing and getting to know much, much better, much more quickly. Because the idea from day one was to produce a walking bridge, a pedestrian walking bridge across the Ohio. The original plan, Hargrave's original plan, was to build a huge earthen mound. And then when the studies were done, it could not hold it. The ground just could not support that much weight. And so they came up with a really beautiful, elegant system of these suspended, these three separate sections of a grand ellipse that goes up to raise you up 54 feet from the ground to the entrance of the bridge. And I'm not making any statements now, actually. I'm not saying when, but in a very near future. I'm thinking 2-3 weeks. You're going to be able to go up on this bridge, and you've not experienced anything quite like it. It's spectacular. You're going to be able, for the first 6 months or so, to walk over to the Indiana shore. It'll be fenced off. But by this next summer, they will be finished in the inside. You'll be able to walk right down into Jeffersonville, and it's going to be the most popular part of the park for very good reason. It is absolutely splendid. You get views up there that are just stunning, and you will see the city in a whole new way. It literally gives you a perspective and gives you an idea of what has been accomplished from, if you remember that picture of the scrap yards a few minutes ago, to what there is today. This park draws about 1.5 million visitors a year to an area that got no support. One of the goals of the park from day one was to restore economic vitality. Prior to the building of Waterfront Park, there were about 400 jobs north of Main Street in Louisville that worked at the ballet and worked at the Belle of Louisville and worked at the warehouses. Today there are about 7,500 jobs, all of which pay occupational taxes. So the economic impact is profound, and it has tells such a part of our community, and this is where you will be going very, very shortly, because it is something to show off. And we have one other thing to show off coming up. And it goes back to our initial heritage of steamboats and the river's edge. And there's a group of us making some plans, and it's going to be next year, the Belle's 100th birthday. And we are drawing together 9 riverboats, pretty much the 9 remaining riverboats. You should know that the Belle of Louisville is the oldest riverboat in world history. It's the only operational Mississippi riverboat steamboat left in America, and it's something very, very special. So we are planning in October of 14 a really huge citywide 5-day project to bring all these other boats here and have a series of spectacular events. There's going to be concerts, there are going to be races, there are going to be boat parades, there are going to be tours, bourbon tasting, anything you can imagine. And we are in the early stages working with a young fellow named Neville Blakemore, who's the chairman of the committee, and Ashley Smith, who's at the front table, is the executive director. Ashley's in charge of all of the events in Waterfront Park. Cordell Lawrence, some of you folks know Cordell. He's on the committee as well, and we are looking at celebrating and providing educational opportunities and preservation for the Great Bell of Louisville. The average life of an American steamboat was 3 to 5 years. Our boat's 99 years old. Thank you all so very much for inviting me today.